Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Raising Healthy Mothers. I have had a flurry of discovery calls recently. This is usually the first step that everyone takes to working with me. It's a free call over Zoom or on the phone, whichever feels best. On the call, people tell me what they're really struggling with at the moment, and we discuss whether my one-to-one recover program is right for them. It's often the first opportunities that mums have ever had the space to really let it all out. Often it's the first time that someone's actually asked them, "What are you struggling with right now?" And almost always at the end of the time or the end of the questions that I've been asking them, they say, "Gosh, I'm so sorry. I've been talking for ages. I didn't realize I was thinking of all of these things." And this is actually the reason why I love these calls so much. I love being able to gently hold this space for them, to be that first person to ask them, "How are you? How is it going? What are you struggling with?" And then to say, it's okay to feel that way and that there is a way forward. Anyway, as a result of these discovery calls, I'm really honing in on what it is I actually do and what working with me is like. So, in this episode, I am lifting the lid and answering the question, what do you actually do? So, as a nutritionist, you might think that I just sit around all day looking at diet diaries and telling clients what they should cut out. In actual fact, a lot of my work is collaborative. There's no point telling someone to cut out gluten, to cut out sugar, FODMAPs, histamine food, when often the mums I see barely have the time and energy to make themselves toast in the morning. And so, working with me, my clients get a lot of personalized support to find a solution that is going to fit into their lives. I actually very rarely tell them to cut much out at all because I know how overwhelming that can be. And often that's not really going to be the thing that is going to get them moving forward at the beginning anyway. Sometimes I might say to cut something out later on, but definitely not right at the beginning. One of the things I've really come to realize is that each person has a completely different way that they need to be supported. And since my clients are usually mums of under fives, it becomes really, really hard to find a time to meet every week or every fortnight. So, with that in mind, I completely restructured my whole 4 month package to accommodate busy mums because that's who I work with. I did actually consider doing away with Zoom consultations altogether and just having chat access to me. But I actually know that face to face contact over Zoom is actually really important for building trust, for building rapport, and for getting that connection as well, which is so important for a therapeutic relationship. But I have kept things flexible. So when I start working with clients, we always have a 60-minute consultation, initial consultation, where we take a really deep dive into the health questionnaire that I get them to fill in before we actually meet. And then after that, I recommend meeting at least once a month, but ideally twice a month, especially in the first 2 months. I'm very flexible with this. Sometimes it might be more if that's the way a mum likes being supported, or sometimes it might be less if they just find it hard to find a time. I welcome babies onto the call. I know that sometimes they have to be there because you can't find that time alone. That's fine. It's easier if you don't have your baby there or your toddler or whatever. But I'm a mum. I know what it's like. I've had to do workshops and calls when I've had my babies breastfeeding as well. So between sessions, between consultations, whichever they choose to do, my clients have unlimited access to me as well. So they can chat to me using the app that we use to kind of manage our time together. And that's really, really effective because that means that they can just ask me really quick questions if they have something that's popped into their head and they don't want to lose it or they don't want to waste time waiting for the next consultation. Or they can just kind of go, "Oh my goodness, I'm really struggling this week. I just couldn't think of any breakfast that would get me going." So we might give them some suggestions that would help. On top of that, I also run drop-in clinic hours, and this is where you can book in, you get 15 minutes with me to discuss one problem or one specific issue. Or sometimes I might invite my clients to book into these sessions to discuss blood tests or anything else that I think we need to kind of tweak that would just do better talking face to face on. As I mentioned, I really try and avoid cutting things out of the diet as much as possible. I know how hard change is, especially when it comes to diet, especially when it's something that you have that has become really, really ingrained. So I nearly always talk about what can we add into your current meals and snacks. So that's where filling in a really good food journal is really important because I can look at what we're eating and go, oh my God, that's amazing. How about adding a handful of lentils into that? Or that looks like a great snack. What about adding some nuts into it to keep you fuller for longer, to keep you going for longer? I find making these sort of small switches and changes over time is much, much more effective than just saying cut out all of the sugar, don't eat any gluten. That's not right for everyone anyway. Like, there's no point making these sweeping statements that just are too generic, basically. But it's also why I prefer having these informal chats via Messenger over kind of formal long consultations at a set time, because I know it's easier to respond and to be honest in that kind of non-intimidating environment of a chat room, basically. And when I'm with my clients, whether they're, on a call or on chat, we're discussing things like strategies to find pockets of time for 10 minutes of yoga, or how to get to bed early enough when you have a million chores to do after the kids have gone to bed, or how to find the time to eat a protein rich breakfast first thing in the morning when you're also trying to hurry the kids out the door, or how to manage when friends are visiting for the weekend and you're trying really hard to eat in a certain way because you know that's what feels good. But usually, when these friends come and visit, you share a bottle of wine and, a pizza. So, we talk about the strategies to manage those difficult situations because, again, I could say, have a protein rich breakfast every day, do 10 minutes of yoga, do some mindfulness, do some breathing, do some exercise. And I could say all of these things, but if it doesn't work for you, it's never going to happen. You might get really motivated and do it for like a few days, and then next week comes along and you're like, I just can't do it. I had a really broken night. I can't get up and do my 10 minutes of yoga. And then that kind of snowballs and becomes harder and harder to do. And that's not what I'm all about. I'm all about celebrating what you can manage to do, even if it is just that one thing, that three deep breaths before getting up in the morning. That's a brilliant win as far as I'm concerned. We were trained in college to write long lists of things to change and diet overhauls and stuff because the clinic practices that we had were only involved 2 sessions. But I knew from the very beginning when I was going to set up my own clinic that 2 sessions was never going to be enough to see real change. And that's why from the beginning I've always offered packages, and now it's all I offer when it comes to working with me one to one on a package. I only offer 4-month packages with regular sessions in between, whether that's on chat or on Zoom. I'm really coming to realize the value of offering just a really small handful of changes at a time. Less really is more here because it gives my clients the time and the opportunity to really embed those new habits, to really set them in stone, see the results that that change brings. And then that gives them the motivation to make another small change the next week on top of the one they've already made. If I'm honest, keeping those changes small is actually really difficult when you are a nutritionist and your brain is going off in all these different directions. I literally think about 20 different things as soon as I get that background information about all the different systems that need support at any one time. I'm really honestly still working on really reining that back and just going, okay, but what are the 3 key things my clients can do this week? It's hard. And then there's a lot of work that goes on in the background too, other than just that face to face work that I do with clients. In an average week in my job, you will find me reading food journals, sending encouraging words about what they're putting in to make those changes, what they've added in that they didn't have last week, plus giving them ideas to make that meal even more nutritious, even more satiating, which is always the goal at the back of my mind about what can I do, what can they do to get more energy into their days. I also spend a lot of time responding to questions and updates from clients on my Recover program, helping them set achievable goals for each week. At the beginning of a program, my clients will almost always start with a blood test. So I will spend a decent amount of time interpreting that blood test, getting support calls from the lab if I need it, or from a mentor just to talk through those blood tests and talk about what recommendations I'm going to make. I often also do peer discussions on my specific cases, anonymously, of course, with my mentors and my peers, so that I can come up with the best way to support my clients without overwhelming. And that's the best way to learn. Honestly, I will talk to my peers and I'll say, I've got this client, this is her background, these are the symptoms, this is what I'm thinking, what would else should I do, or what would you do? And I always get these amazing suggestions back and think, oh yes, that's a brilliant thing to add in. And that's a great way for me to learn and grow as well. I spend quite a bit of time researching supplements and coming up with a protocol that is going to help plug the gaps for the minimum amount of time while working on in the background on improving the diet overall. Nutrient depletion is almost always present in my clients because most of my clients are postpartum around 5 years or so. And it is really common to see nutrient depletion in there. So, having a really deep understanding of their nutritional context and then the comprehensive blood test as well really helps to point me in the direction that I need to go to help them find more energy, feel less exhausted, and just get that joy back in being the mum that they want to be. There are so many reasons for having low energy other than just because you had broken sleep because a baby wakes every 2 hours. So I call myself a bit of a depletion detective because I try and connect all of the dots. I use the blood test, I use the health history, I use your current challenges and what's gone on in the past as well to just make all of these connections over time. I also spend a decent amount of time helping my clients navigate how to have meaningful family time, especially around food and meals, while also finding time for themselves. The mums I work with have deep values of connection and family time. It is so important to them. And so I know that any recommendations I make have to fit into their family life, into their lifestyle, into what is going to work for them. And so making sure that they can put that in place with that family in mind is so important. Um, but finding time for themselves often proves one of the hardest things to do because mums, we are so used to putting everyone else first. And finding space and time for ourselves can be really hard if we've not got used to it, if we've just fallen by the wayside. I do believe it's always possible, whether that is 3 minutes for a gratitude practice before you close your eyes and go to sleep, or 10 minutes of yoga first thing in the morning, or half an hour to do a workout at home. I do think it's always possible, depending on where you are in your motherhood. It might be something really small, or it might be something that you've been meaning to do for a really long, long time, and you can only manage it once your children are 5 and 2.5, for example. And then I also spend a decent amount of time thinking of how to make eating, moving, and sleeping well easier, quicker, and less stressful for my clients. I often hear things like, I always used to love cooking before I had children, or exercise was such an important part of my life before I had kids. So, my job here is to help my clients rediscover that same joy within the context that they are in now, in the season of their life right now. How to do it with the chaos. The thing that has really humbled me over time is realizing that there genuinely can never be a one size fits all approach. Not just because we are all so genetically different as human beings, we all have different health contexts, but because all of us live such different lives. I used to think I could just tell people to just copy whatever I do and they'll be fine. But I know my privileges. And I know that not everyone can and will be able to do the same as me. When I get a client who is a single mum or where both of the parents work full time, we have to work collaboratively to find a solution that fits into their life because that's not the same life that I live. They are the expert on their own lives. So, what can we do? What can we work on together to make sure that the recommendations I'm making is actually going to work for them? And that's just the client work I do. As a solo business owner, an enormous chunk of my time is spent on marketing my services, including things like recording this podcast episode, sending emails and newsletters, posting on social media, networking, making connections with those who can support me. And one of the reasons I can only take on a small number of clients at a time is I know my clients need a lot of support, especially in the first few months of making those diet and lifestyle changes. And so, because I only work 3 days a week, there's only so much time for client work, for the kind of high touch client work that I know is important. But that's something I love doing. Without that high touch and high support, I wouldn't get to know my clients as deeply as I do. And that's really important because sometimes it's not until the second, third, or even fourth month of working together that they really open up. Or they might mention something that they're struggling with that they'd never mentioned before, either because they didn't want to or it hadn't occurred to them. I know that it's only after getting to know me and trusting that I am going to hold them gently no matter what is going on for them that they can fully open up. Being in my world means being listened to wholeheartedly, unpicking the confusing nutrition information out there, and offering up solutions and suggestions that feel doable. The result is feeling heard and motivated to make those small changes that will stack up over time and cause that domino effect of change. Ultimately, everything I do in my work is to make mums feel less alone and more able to put herself first, even for just a small amount of time every day. In my ideal world, every mum meets her needs with as much priority as she does her whole family. She is calm and joyful in her motherhood, happy in her skin, confident in her kind management of challenging situations with her children. She steps away from that overwhelm, exhaustion, burnout that motherhood can bring, and instead steps into the unique mother they know they are capable of being. And the ripple effect of mums putting herself first is that the entire family gets to be healthier, stronger, have well attached, resilient children, confident in their place in the family and the world, and have the tools to manage their own health and well being. But it starts with mum. It starts with the parents. It starts with them role modeling what it takes to be confident, to be healthy, to be resilient, to be strong. And this ripple effect will spread across entire generations if I can help these amazing mums to reset their motherhood today. That's that's my why. That's why I do what I do. So if you've been listening to this and you're now thinking, oh my goodness, I need this, then I would love to talk to you about your current challenges and discuss whether I can help. I'm taking on just 3 more clients before the summer holiday starts at the end of July. So once the spaces are filled, I won't open them up again until September, so I can really fully focus on these clients within the summer holidays. I work entirely online, so it doesn't matter where you are, and I meet you exactly where you're at. There's no such thing as failure in my program. Every win and struggle is information that we can build on, that we can change, that we can improve. So if you feel like you've tried everything in the past, you're feeling a bit skeptical, then I promise the way I work is really different. Take the first step towards putting yourself first and book in for that discovery call now. So if you want to learn more about that 4-month one-to-one program Recover, then go to tashadecruz.com/recover. The link is in the show notes as well. And on that website, on that webpage, you will find the link to book in for a discovery call there. I'm so looking forward to speaking to you. I hope you enjoyed this episode. It's a little bit different than my usual one, and I will see you next week for another episode.